going back to Rise, right? I think, the dragonfly analogy, I think seems much cooler than, say, a hummingbird, right?
Yeah. Hey everyone, it's Jon and Mike here again. We're here back for part 2 of our chat about inspiration. And in this episode, we're going to be focusing on how inspiration relates to design.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear where industrial design gets their inspiration.
Yeah. So for design, I think, when we do our work, we take a lot of how we do our process here is we do mood boards. What do mood boards do? Or what are mood boards? Mood boards are essentially 2D documents or 3D documents sometimes where you kind of take influence from color, material, finish, forms of items to kind of set the mood or tone for the objective product you're trying to design. So it's pretty common in interior design or when you're doing like housing projects, you'll get like tiles and stuff and put it all on a board and like, hey, this is the feeling I want for my bathroom reno. For industrial design, if we're designing a consumer electronic for the gaming industry, we'll try to grab inspiration from, okay, what's the gaming environment? Well, there's like, a nice dark lit room with, mood lighting. You'll take, inspirational colors from the gaming environments and stuff like that and put that into the mood board. And from that mood board, my team always laughs at me. I treat this as ingredients, right? And I think that's what inspiration is to us. They are the spark or ingredients to which you cook up your final design or product with. And as anyone knows if you guys are foodies, the quality of your ingredients really determines the quality of the end dish. And so I think inspiration is quite important for us as designers, because if you're just going around and, hey, let's put a fillet on this, hey, let's just make this circular, and like that does nothing objectively. And I really think and especially in this day and age where everything's going digital, people really like to connect with their physical products, right? And there's like something human and almost intangibly emotional about how people connect with their products. And so the way you're going to get that is to kind of like get into the inspirational story about that. So shoes are a great example. Nike does an excellent job of this. Like whenever they're designing a shoe for LeBron James or for Kobe or for Michael Jordan, you'll notice like on the undersoles, on the bottom, they have different aspects of, I think there was like a documentary I saw about Kevin Durant's shoe, where the industrial designer put in aspects of his life, like the street he lived on, and pictures of like a heart for his mom, things like all these things that built him into the player that he was, told the story, and that got integrated into the design of the shoe. What does that do for the end user? Well, it makes you feel like you're Kevin Durant. So when you put on those basketball shoes, you feel like you can actually perform like that basketball star. Car design uses this a lot. There's a lot of, I think, products that use inspiration well, you're gonna feel an emotional connection to it. And so that's how we kind of use it here at H2O. Me personally, I think inspiration is very important. I have a studio art background. So while design is not art, right? Art is a form of expression. Design is, a commercial objective process. I do take a lot of art influence and kind of inject that into our process as well in terms of storytelling. And so, with art, you're trying to make the viewer feel something. And so I kind of make that a requirement for our designers, especially when they are working on a product, whether it's medical, are you making the patient feel safe and comfortable, right? With Robin Healthcare, we had to make sure that, this monitoring device actually felt like it wasn't Big Brother, right? How do we do that with form and proportion language on the device? And so what are the inspirations behind that? Well, you take a look at friendly robots like Big Hero 6, Baymax, right? He looks super friendly. How do you inject some of that DNA or that aspect of proportion and that fluffiness and friendliness into the device? So that's kind of how we use inspiration for us at H2O. So a lot of design inspiration is visual, right? I would say most of the time it is visual. It is visual images, visual references, because the medium in which we work with, it's all visual, right? That's kind of how people think about design. The kind of more unknown aspects of inspiration are the tactile and the touch aspects of industrial design, because we actually deal with textures and things too. So going out and touching things, like going out in nature, touching rocks, trees, or just going around and touching different material textures and sampling them. We have a whole material library as well. That also helps for inspiration as well, because when you're designing something for a product in industrial design, it's physical, right? It's not just on screen. It becomes a real product that has real atoms to it, and so understanding, you know, how the tactile senses react and interact with the material is something to consider for inspiration. I think like designers in particular, they all are inspired in different ways too. Like it's very fluid. No one designer gets inspiration exactly the same way as like another designer. I've seen car designers like fold, you know, little strips of paper in these like wave forms to kind of simulate airflow across the vehicle, and that's how they kind of like architect and figure out, you know, car proportions or like what their car design may look like. You know, I've seen industrial designers use weird materials, like during COVID when we didn't have complete access to stuff. They're using like balls of aluminum foil and scrunching stuff up to kind of inspire some forms. One thing that like I like doing is cross-pollinating. So I always relate it back to cooking again, right? Like Top Chef. I'm very inspired by Top Chef, and if you watch the best winners of Top Chef, they cross-pollinate. So maybe, you know, it's an Asian chef taking a fusion take on Italian food, right? So they're cross-pollinating cultures, and I think that's always very interesting. So when we're designing, let's say, a medical device, but we did something for, you know, or did a certain aesthetic for a beauty brand, you know, in terms of color, material, and finish, there may be some aspects to cross-pollinate there and make that medical device actually more interesting, more usable, more friendly for the end user. So I think cross-pollination is a technique we use to make inspiration more utilizable. In terms of like methodology, so for Rise Dragonfly, the drone, we were inspired by a dragonfly, right? Like a thing that hovered, looks down, inspects. That was kind of the function of the drone. So we actually took a kind of biomimicry approach there, where we were inspired by, you know, the aspects of, if you actually look at a dragonfly's wings and you look at the veins and how that very articulate structure is composed in the cellular structure, we kind of applied that to the propeller guards, which also related to, you know, the hangar environment, the airline hangar environment that it was going to be working in. So I think like, like using environmental, natural, anamorphic, you know, kind of inspiration. So taking that, we're like, hey, that was very successful there. Then we started to work with this plant sensor company called Credo, where, you know, we're not being inspired by dragonflies for that because it was a completely different thing, but it was like, hey, you know how we were inspired by nature for that last project? Like, I think it would be very applicable here. So let's take a look at, you know, how tree rings, you know, tree stumps, if you look at the rings, they're made like, is there anything there? Or leaves, you know, the leaf structure of how a leaf looks and how can we integrate them. What we did was we actually took a literal leaf, zoomed in on it, and analyzed the growth structure of how it has the stem and the outer leaf, and we kind of integrated that into the form language of the sensor. So,
yeah, it's like holding a leaf under the light, right? You can see the veining. Same way where Credo illuminates the light behind it, and, you know, through varying wall thicknesses, you get light that passes through thin areas and light that gets obstructed where there's veining.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, in our previous video, I think you've heard us mention that Hatch Duo is creating an AI tool that's based around mood boards. So, you know, Jon mentioned that, you know, Mooed was able to speed up our process, making our designers much more efficient. So I've actually created some mood boards myself, and as an engineer, I don't find myself creating very many mood boards. I think this was one of a handful that I've ever created in my life.
You gotta show some of these on screen.
Yeah, I'll show you here. This is an earlier version, right? So the image sources weren't exactly high quality.
Show them the updated ones.
Well, yeah, we'll show them the updated ones, but then like the one I created, which was based on food, was probably the most images from the database. It was food based and also animal based, and so I created one that was framed around food and desserts. Incomplete because I couldn't fill the rest of the tiles, but you can see here. So yeah, I mean, what I would say to that is that it's Mooed, the play on words, it's actually so easy that even an engineer like myself, who's not a designer, can use it. So if you're a photographer, a wedding planner, interior designer, a creative, I think it's a very useful tool for collecting, for sorting, for synthesizing and searching images. And so if you're a creative like my business partner here, I think you'll find Mooed a very useful tool.
Here's my mood boards, just if you want to see. All right, thanks everyone for joining us for this little episode. If you liked it, please like and leave a comment down below. Feel free to give us some of your ideas on what inspires you, as well as what other kind of topics you want us to talk about next.
Yeah, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. And until then,
let's hatch awesome.
Yeah.